Welcome to Genes and Gems, everyone. I'm your host, Natalie Green, aka Natty Girl, aka the Hip Hop Genealogist. As most of you know, the premise of this show is to dig into the genealogical roots of our guest family tree and then hopefully pull out some great gems that they either didn't know about or want to learn more about. I really started this podcast and this journey actually started 20 years ago when I started researching my own family history, but then knowing what I discovered and how it made me feel, I wanted to do it for anybody who would let me. So this show is an honor to do, and anyone who comes on is, hopefully feeling as happy as I am to help them learn about their family's journey.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Keisha, aka Kenshi, aka Snacks. I'm elated to be here. This is something that I've been trying to get my best friend to do for forever. And we're finally here. So I'm ecstatic about it. I'm ecstatic about the information that we're finding out. And most importantly, our guest. Without further ado, I'm so excited to introduce today's guest. He's a multi-platinum rap artist. He's your favorite producer and rapper's favorite producer and rapper. He's part of a dynamic duo from Queens. You know, I'm from Queens that we all know and love. Definitely a legend. I'd like to introduce let me just give you one of his lines. Walking with your head down, scared to look. You're shook. Yeah, you know who that is. No other than the legend, Havoc from Mobb Deep.
Hey, thank you for that great introduction.
Absolutely. Well, really excited to have you. We've been working on your genealogy and your ancestry for quite a few years. So I think first things first, what made you allow us to get all in your roots in your history? What was the interest there for you?
What allowed me to allow y'all to get into the roots was my quest to find out, my true bloodline, my biological bloodline. Giving shout out to the people that raised me, you know what I mean? Can't diminish what role they played in my life, but trying to find out my roots, basically, just to make a long story short.
Understood. So what did you already know? Did you have stories? Did you have an idea? Were there things you wanted to confirm or, just get more information about? Or was this just a blank slate for you?
The only inclination or ideas that I had was like from my mom's, you know what I mean? Because I was told at an early age, like around 7 or 8, that, my father wasn't my biological father. And ever since then, I always wanted to know, okay, who is, you know what I mean, and how they look. So that's what started my journey.
Sure. So on your mother's side, how far back, like which ancestors you already know? I think you obviously knew your grandmother and grandparents, but how many generations, on your mother's side were you aware of?
Well, on my mother's side, I got to meet my great-grandmother.
That's awesome.
Right? I got to meet her. Most of my mother's side is located in Brooklyn.
Right.
So I got to see them.
Right, but it's like something is missing when you don't know the other
half. It's like off balance.
Well, that it's funny because when we first started this journey, I remember you had those names, you was reading them off, and the first thing I do when I'm doing any kind of research is the paper trail. That's the easiest thing. So once you gave me a few of those names, we went back 4 or 5 generations to even the people you hadn't heard of them, but we traced your Adams and your Caldwells, which is your mom's people, all the way up to 4th and 5th generation grandparents. So I remember that once we stopped and hit that brick wall, I suggested that you take the DNA test,
right?
Because that would open many doors. And just real quick for the listeners, viewers. When you're doing the genealogical research, right, you start with this paper trail, and it's anything from census documents to vital records, going to museums, going to cemeteries, right, and gathering all the information you can, which is the names and the dates. When you hit a brick wall, DNA really helps take it to that next level, because what happens is you're now connected with all the other people that have taken DNA that you matched with. So you were, interested enough to dig deeper, and you allowed me to take your DNA, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it sounds weird. Take your DNA. With permission. But with that said, like, what were you hoping to gain, or what did you think that would at least get you closer to?
Giving up the DNA, I was just thinking like, maybe like a Hail Mary might happen, like, like from deep, like, yo, guess who this is? You know what I'm saying? So I'm never scared to give him my DNA because I'm not a criminal, so it's all good.
Yeah, and it's funny because then I have a lot of clients who are against it. But what I would say is that once you did that, the way the floodgates opened up was amazing. We found, Keith, over 9,000 DNA relatives, distant cousins, right? And so once we did that, this is 9,000 people to pick from. But what made that so unique is that what Ancestry does, it breaks it down to parent 1 and parent 2. So we knew the Adams, the Caldwells, and all the other names that were associated with parent 1, who was your mom. But parent 2 had the closest DNA match. So of all time. I mean, and so close it said it was either first or second cousin. So, how did you feel when we found that you had a first cousin on your dad's side, or first or second cousin?
Okay, so the first cousin, like, it didn't really rattle me. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, we all got first cousins. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Who are they? You know what I'm saying? And the rabbit hole that it created really, really frazzled me and rattled me.
Yeah, it was funny because I'm not going to share the person's first name, but their last name was Sermon. And so I'm the hip hop genealogist. So, when you hear the name Sermon, I mean, who do you think of?
Immediately.
Right. Yeah. You think of Eric Sermon. So we like, boom, he's going to be Eric Sermon's cousin, and Eric's going to be able to tell us who the biological father is, and it's all going to end there. And it didn't. And it's by no, the thing is that Sermon wasn't the last name of your biological father. So it wasn't this instant connection that, this must be his niece or nephew. Fast forward to literally a couple days ago.
But in between all of that.
Yes, we should.
In between all of that, I asked Eric Sermon, like, hey, do you know this person? And he got back to me and said, yeah, I do know that lady. My mother said X, Y, and Z. And that's where it kind of stopped. Because I was like, okay, you know her, but you can't tell me any definitive information. But we did start calling each other cousins after that because we are cousins, right? Like, based on the Sermon thing, because she popped up on my DNA.
Yep. At some point, we're all related, right?
Right. I mean, it don't get no better than that. Yeah. So me and Eric Sermon are cousins, whether it's third, fourth, fifth, whatever it is. We are cousins, and that was just amazing.
That was a big one for us.
And let me tell you, when I was 13, I was the super duper EPMD fan.
Right. Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? 12 and all of that. Like, what? You understand what I'm saying? Like, EPMD.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
Another super group, another hip hop, legendary group. You know,
so being on that topic, when you did find out about your lineage, when you found out, like, how when you do the swab, they also break it down as far as like the percentages of where you're from. How did you feel about what you found out?
Wait, let's remind him, because I don't know if you know exactly the numbers, right?
Right.
Let me see, because I have my notes here. You are 96% African. Well, from African regions, right?
There I go.
But then you have 3% that is European. And 1% indigenous. I mean, is that shocking to you, or? Nah,
it's not shocking to me because, people travel the planet and they, saying they was partying with everybody. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. For sure. I mean, I thought like that was that first link when we, the Eric Sermon. I definitely thought we were going to hit the ground
was onto
running.
something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but this is to my other point that in addition to the paper trail and the vital records and the DNA, there's also communication, right? You talked to Eric Sermon, but you also had reached out to, I guess, a second or third cousin that was a match.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the information, and you can share, I guess, the information that you gathered just from reaching out to that person.
Right. So we had Marilyn Sermon, and then there was somebody named Ariel Sermon, right? So Marilyn Sermon did not have any pictures, right? But we knew she was older, right? Because of the profile.
Exactly.
But Ariel Sermon she had a picture, and obviously she was younger, way younger than me, So I asked Marilyn and I asked Ariel, and Ariel was the only one to respond. So I said, Ariel, who is Marilyn Sermon? And she said, that's my grandmother. Right. I said, okay, cool. That's your grandmother. Does the word, what is her maiden name?
Sure.
And she said, Settles. And then that's when I was like, okay, bye, see you later, because that's not the name I was looking for.
Right.
And then I just kind of dropped the ball, but that I shouldn't have did that. I should have came back to you and just hit you with the name Settles. And that was probably the breakthrough.
Well, that definitely opened the floodgates. I mean, it just, again, leads to the conversation that this whole research, this whole journey doesn't, again, stop at ancestry.com or paper trail or even DNA. It's communicating, right? Finding people that can maybe fill in the blanks for you, right? And so once Havoc given me the maiden name to the first / second cousin that we found, her married name was Sermon, but her maiden name was Settles. So I'm like, Settles is not Dixon, which is his father's name, right? So we're stuck. But he gave me another hint. Why? Because he talked to his mom. He said, well, Mom, my dad's name, do you recognize any other names? And there was a name that came up as Dorothy. I think Dorothy was his mother.
Wow.
So what I was able to do is go back to the paper trail, the first part, and see that, in fact, there was a Dorothy Settles in the same household, grew up with the Sermon.
Marilyn Sermon.
Wow.
Right? And so that is when the floodgates really opened.
Wow.
So Dorothy Settles ended up marrying a man named William Robert Dixon.
Dixon, the name that we was looking for.
And that's the name we were looking for in the beginning. And,
interesting.
We found, so not only did we find the biological, we knew his biological father and grandmother, but now we found his biological grandfather. And, well, you know what, before you even say that, I gave Keash some insight. So why don't you tell us about who his granddad was?
So I think you're going to be surprised to find out.
Oh, well, no, he knows.
Oh, well, then for our audience, you guys are going to be thrilled to find out, as I'm sure he was, that his grandfather, Bill Dixon. We found that he's an American composer, renowned jazz artist, played multiple instruments, founded the Jazz Society at the United Nations, and is in the Guinness books for Who's Who in Jazz. How do you feel about that?
I'm not surprised. You understand what I'm saying? Because of how I feel as a person, what was already built into me, you know what I'm saying, naturally, but not knowing where it came from, and then finally finding out the DNA of which I came is like, now it all makes sense.
That wasn't the only thing that we found out about your grandfather, Bill Dixon. We found that he's a visual arts, studied painting at Boston University in the 1950s.
I mean, it just came full circle for me, right? Because this whole quest of trying to find out who my biological father was, just simply to know where I came from, right? It really made me more of a believer in DNA, right? And nothing happens by chance. Yeah, you understand what I'm saying? My biological grandfather was a musician. You understand what I'm saying? And he was an artist. I went to the High School of Art and Design. You understand? And I didn't know this man a day of my life. You understand? So it's not like I seen him and said, okay, let me be an artist too. Right. It was already in my blood.
In the genetics.
It was in my genetics and the musician part, because I love music. Like, I love music more than I think anybody loves music. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I really love it. I love it so much that I can't just listen to it regularly. I listen to it and I dissect it when I listen to it. You understand what I'm saying?
All the elements, everything behind.
I'm like, what do they reverse engineering it? You know what I mean, so to speak. So when I found that out, almost like a tear was coming to my eye. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm like, wow, for real? You know what I mean? Because, me as a black man, us as black people, you grow up sometimes they give us these books in school and say, you was a slave, you was brought here. They don't say where you was brought from, and you was a slave, and then whatever. Right. You understand what I'm saying? Nah, that's not my story, kid.
Not your story.
You feel me? That's not my story. My story is this right here. Yeah. Matter of fact, I come from St. I ain't want to say it.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna bring that back a little bit too, because for me, you hit on a really, really important topic. This is one of the reasons why I got into this type of research and I had interest. I remember being a young child in class and having these family projects, and I was usually the only Black child in the class when I lived in Massachusetts, or one of two, right? And so all my classmates were able to say, I'm the great-great-grand of, George Washington. And my family came over in the Mayflower. I was from Massachusetts. And I remember sitting there twiddling my thumbs. What can I say? And there were things that I could say. And what I did know about my family history is that my family's name is Jefferson. So I had been told since I was a small child, I'm a descendant of Thomas Jefferson, the president. When I said that in second grade, my teacher laughed at me and said, "Oh no, honey, that's not you." And back to our DNA quest. When I took my DNA, probably 7 years ago, I am related to dozens and dozens of Thomas Jefferson descendants. Not only that, I followed the paper trail to my great-great-great-grandfather Elijah Jefferson. I'm a Jefferson. Now we can go into what that means, right? To be a descendant of Thomas Jefferson, that's a whole nother story. But it's to your point where this narrative, or what they try to tell us who we are, where we came from, we are in a position to debunk that every single time. Another thing I wanted to bring up, which I think, and we talked about this before, we went to the African American Museum, saw Mobb Deep in there, and it was so amazing because it's like your grandchildren, your great grandchildren have this legacy. Our great granddad was in this group, and he did these amazing things, and he had all these accomplishments. How does it feel now that they're going to be able to say our great was also there? I mean, this is big.
This music is in your blood.
It is big. Music is in my blood, but for my future generations to come and for my legacy, even if they're not into music and they don't choose that path, at least they know where they come from.
And that's just, I don't know, that's unmatched. I think that's really awesome. Yeah. So we did find some more stuff just in the last few days, and I wanted to save the reveal for now, but you have to play a game to get the information.
Okay, I'm with it.
All right.
I'm game.
Okay, so the game is called Two Truths and a Lie.
Two Truths and a Lie.
So two of the things.
No, this is the first time.
So I'm gonna tell you 3 things, and out of the 3 things, I'm gonna say 2 of them are true.
Okay.
So I guess you're gonna have to explain, or you're gonna let us know which
one is the lie.
You feel are the truth.
Okay. The truth. Okay. Got you. Copy.
All right. So the first one is you have family that immigrated to America through Ellis Island. Mm-hmm. Number 2 is your 3rd great-grandfather fought in the Civil War. Mm-hmm. And the 3rd is you're a distant relative of Abraham Lincoln.
Okay. I think the Abraham Lincoln is not true and the other true.
Okay. Well, all right. Ding, ding, ding. We're gonna give a little history to each of those. So,
am I right?
You're right. Although you're not related to Abraham Lincoln, the president, you have a second great uncle whose name is Abraham Lincoln Farabee, and he was a reverend in North Carolina. There's a great a book out there, a narrative that you can read from. It's another reverend. It wasn't Abraham Lincoln Farabee, who was your uncle, but it's one of your cousins or distant cousins who wrote about his time in slavery and his time being free and his ministry. You have family that immigrated here through Ellis Island, so I know you kind of knew this. Yes, they came from St. Kitts.
Yes, they did. And the crazy thing about it, and us conversing about it, I come to find out that I actually know a couple of your family members. I'm not really sure where on the your tree they are, but I know they're there because you actually share resemblance to a friend of mine growing up father.
Wow.
So it's deep.
It's such a deep connection. They came, and you know where they moved to in 1903? Queens.
They moved to
so you've been in Queens. Your family been in Queens for a minute, and they came over. I mean, in the documentation, we have the documents from Ellis Island that show their signature going. It shows who they were going to visit and then eventually live with, because you had to have a place where you're going to go when you
like a sponsor
when you hit America. So yes, that one is true. And this one, I was really excited about this one because I'll just lay it out. So your is it the third grade?
Third great grandfather.
Your third great grandfather, William Ferriby, fought in the Civil War. Okay, I have one, but this really knocked me out. He was a sergeant for the U.S. colored troops, the 38th Infantry.
Wow.
You have a line of power.
Wow.
They were very vocal, and your family, like, they didn't take anything lying down.
Yeah,
No
I mean,
doubt.
and we're talking, I mean, this man, he owned his own home in 1900. I mean, think about
Which is
that
probably
for a second.
unheard of.
Exactly.
I mean, it's home ownership is not easy for everybody right now.
Right, period.
So imagine in the 1950s.
No,
During-
1900.
19. Oh my God.
I'm a part of a crew of gangsters.
Oh, yeah.
What?
This
You know what
is
I'm
a
saying?
man that was in bondage,
Yep.
was freed. So I'm learning more about the 38th
And where did he
Infantry.
live?
North Carolina. And he passed away in Virginia. Wait till there's more. Let me just set the picture up
Break
for
it
you.
down
So
for
the 38th U.S. Colored Troop Infantry, these were men who escaped slavery or were freed by the Union Army. So I'm not sure. We need a little more time to find out how exactly he got free from bondage. But either way, he was either freed. I'm thinking because of the Ferribys, he might have been freed by that connection, or he escaped. Either way, he ended up on this infantry and became a sergeant.
And led.
We're talking about
And let it on and survived and lived.
And had a house.
we're talking about the 18.
And when it was all over, he went and got a crib.
And
Yeah.
chill.
Yeah. So what's really
He didn't get killed in the war.
No.
Mm-mm.
What's really awesome about this is that there is a memorial in I'm gonna
For
tell you
him?
what
For him?
Well, it's for that
For the
infantry.
For the infantry.
Yeah. So
in North
that's
Carolina?
It's actually in Lexington Park, Maryland. So not too far
really?
from here. There's a statue that was resurrected of
Right.
like a depiction of one of the soldiers. There's a whole summary about everything they did. There's a little park. So I advise you check it out. But
I'm going to visit
It's
that.
probably going to be some pictures. You probably, if you go there,
I'm going to
the
visit
breakdown of it in the museum, they'll probably have actual
We probably
footage
could find pictures of that
of him.
too.
yeah, he was probably so there were 3 soldiers that were part of the infantry that received the Medal of Honor. So I know there's a lot of stuff, a lot more stuff that we could discover. Another thing is he has an actual grave. He has his headstone. He has a, and I don't want to say it's in the wrong place.
This is
It's
my
actually-
great grandfather.
Your
Third
great.
great-grandfather.
Yep, he's buried at the National Cemetery in Hampton, Virginia.
Wow.
And he has a headstone with his full name, and it's I think something you're gonna want to see.
And what's the last name on it? The Heatherby, you said?
Ferriby.
Ferriby?
Yes, Ferebee.
So I come from a Ferriby.
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 And they're out of Currituck County, North Carolina. So there's a bunch of history about the Ferribys there, but just about this particular ancestor, Maryland. You can go as close as Maryland to see some.
So I could go to Maryland and I could see that.
Yep.
Isn't it interesting if we can actually, like she said, delve in it a little bit deeper? You may even be able to see the house or the location of where the house was that he first purchased in.
Yeah, I mean, my thought is if they kept that, they probably kept that land, and you know, you can go
It
meet
might be in the family.
Yeah, go meet your Ferriby.
And they're going to be like, I'm your family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So,
Wow.
I mean, with all that, I'll let you ask, Keash. Do you have any questions directly?
So,
related?
if you could talk to a person alive or deceased on your family tree, who would it be? Why? And what would you want to say or ask?
Okay. That's a lot to
To
absorb.
answer.
Well, let's just start with if I mean, just you got a
But
lot
I-
of
but I
info,
got it,
but
though.
You got
But
it?
I got
Okay.
it.
All right.
I would like to talk to my biological grandfather.
Mhm.
Because if I would have knew 20 years ago who he was, I would have just been trying to hang out with him.
That'd
You
been
understand
dope.
what I'm saying? I just would have been like, yo, I found out who he was. This is what it is. And you're a jazz musician and I'm this musician. You know what I mean? So the what they say, the apple don't fall too far from the tree. You know, and just been hanging out with him and just talking to him and just like really kicking it. And be like, yeah, you know, we wasn't raised together. You didn't know me, I didn't know you, but here's the time we have now. And I just would have been asking him all about you know, everything he been through in his jazz journey,
Experience.
his experience and everything like that. And then I would have shared with him, my experiences in hip hop.
Well, what really stood out to me about him, and that's amazing. I love that answer. It was kind of a no-brainer. I was like, I know who he's going to say. I kind of knew that. But the fact that he fought for artists' rights.
That's so major.
That's
right.
That's major. Right. I mean, he was very, you're impressive, but he was a very impressive dude. So I want to talk to him.
Because you're talking about in a time where that could have cost him his life.
Right.
So for him to speak up and just feel like you just come from a lineage of leaders that feared nothing, and it's like, I'm going to say what I have to say.
He was like the Kanye of his time.
Right.
Yeah, right.
I'm sure he was demonized. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And let me just throw this in there, I know this is off topic and not part of what we're talking about, but as Black people, I think we need to stick by our Black people, not even saying names.
Sure.
Right.
And this is, I think, what's helpful about knowing your lineage, knowing where you come from. It's a sense of pride. But more than that, when you look back at history, our people had to stay united and stand united to move.
They had
bondage.
to.
Yeah. What they say, survival of the fittest.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
And, we shouldn't take that for granted.
We shouldn't. I don't think we should take it for granted. And look, man, we need to stick together, because what we learn, or what we are learning in our journey of finding out who our peoples were, is that they stuck together. And that's the only reason why we're hearing these stories.
No matter what.
It's because they stuck together, no matter what, right or wrong.
It just makes us better. Sure. But we have to embrace it more.
Sure, indeed.
Yeah, and just speaking about embracing and learning, again, I think it's so important for, I'll just say straight up, Black people, African Americans, however you identify, to really, research your people, research history. Because I don't know if you knew before this that you were a descendant of a sergeant in the you know what I mean? Like to
owned
be
his
able
own house in the 1900s.
Can you imagine if you were able to say that in fourth grade in front of your classroom?
And no one would have believed it.
Right.
No one would have believed it.
They didn't want us to say that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's let's not stray from the fact that Bill Dixon, not only a renowned jazz artist, but he also served in World War II.
Right.
He was in the army. So you have your background now is a military family. It's a musical family. You have reverends who are in your family. Like this, all is rich history.
Caribbean.
You're from St. Kitts. So let me ask you, this is a lot of new information. And of course, over the years, you've obtained plenty of information. I know there's so much more to find. Is there something that you still feel is missing, or that is our next
venture and next find?
Yeah.
Is there anything? Do I feel like anything is missing? All my life I felt like something was missing, at least since I was 7, right? Yeah. So it's no, there's nothing missing. It's just more to gain.
Absolutely. Well, as you know, this journey doesn't end. We're always turning over a new leaf and finding new discoveries. And I think North Carolina is going to have a lot of our attention, because there's so much to uncover. Would you recommend? I already know the answer. Why would you recommend anybody doing this and learning more? What is your take on that?
Well, of course, like you said, I would recommend, people trying to find their lineage, right? Why wouldn't you want it? I would recommend that it's an important thing, because everything kind of hinges on where you came from.
Sure.
And who your peoples are, right?
Sure.
That's what society is about. It's like, what we do this, right? Whether you Vikings or you King Tut.
Sure.
You understand what I'm saying? So this is where I come from, and you have something to stand on that is proud. So I would say, no matter what, regardless, definitely try to find out where you come from, because I think that's important for you personally.
I think that knowledge gives you a different sense of pride, and you might think twice before dismissing or causing harm to your brothers and sisters.
It looks like your sense of identity. So I think one thing that I think we found, it's like, like I said, we celebrate these holidays, and some of these holidays are specific to different cultures. So like, for instance, like you found out that you have lineage from St. Kitts. So it's like, You ever notice when you meet a West Indian, they don't say they're African American. They'll tell you exactly where I'm Jamaican.
Right.
St. Lucian.
Right.
They identify.
Right.
And like, you meet somebody that's Asian, they'll be, oh no, I'm Chinese. Not gonna call me because there's a specific culture that's attached and they take pride in that culture.
Right.
I find like, a lot of us, we be like, yeah, I'm African American, but what does that mean? So I feel like with the genealogical thing, where you guys should really look into your lineage, it gives us a sense of identity. And not only does it give us a sense of identity, we give an identity to our children. So like Natalie was talking about, you go to school and you have these history projects, you go up in front of class, you want to talk about your family. You want to be able to identify. I would love to say, like, if I was a child of yours, I clearly could because we're the same age, close to the same age or whatever. So it's like, your kid go to school and he's like, well, I found out, my dad told me that my great grandfather in the 1900s had a house. Teachers are going to be looking at him like, what? Mm-hmm. Now in this day, because we're learning that the history that has been taught to us is not the real history, that's a mind-blowing situation. Like right there, like, really tell me more. And it's just that you have so much history that your children can really dig into, and it helps them to be more prideful in who they are. So when they present, who am I? Oh, I'm the son of Have. I'm not going to say your government because, I'm the son of Have. And what does that mean to you? Oh, well, let me tell you about my lineage and what my dad did, what my great-grand did. How far back you want to go? Because we can do it. And that it's like, it comes with the sense of like, you could puff your chest out. Like, you know what? I know where I'm from. Do you know where you're from? Right. So it equals the playing field.
I like that. I mean, knowledge is power. We just have to say that. And I'm sorry, did you have something to say?
No. I'm just listening.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and there's no more denying, right? They can't tell me that I wasn't a descendant of Thomas Jefferson, right? There's nobody that can take these pieces away from you anymore and just push you off the side. It's documented. It's in records. I mean, I have William Ferraby's pension records. It has his discharge papers. I mean, this is actual and factual. So yeah, I think we all agree that it's really important that we know where we come from.
Yeah.
It's funny. I mean, I don't even, although I'm one of the descendants of Thomas Jefferson, that's not where I stand. I don't stand on that. I love to talk about, my third great grandfather who was in the Civil War, like who was a part of the United States colored troops, who served this country, who lost part of his hand serving the country. I mean, those are the stories. I'm truly American, and my roots obviously they start in other places. But for anybody to try to take away our rights or our given heritage is it's a shame, and I'm not going to let it happen.
Absolutely, and hence you starting this podcast, or just not even before the podcast, your interest in ancestry.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to dig further and let you know what other findings I have. I think you would be doing yourself a favor to go down and check out that memorial for your great grandfather, and just something else for you to add to your heritage and your story. So appreciate you.
No, I appreciate you, and I'm gonna thank you for even helping me go down that road, because for a long time I was doing it unsuccessfully, but I had to reach out to the pros, and that was y'all. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, we are so honored to have had you on as our guest. You come back anytime. I'm pretty sure we're going to have a whole new book of information to share.
More, I promise you that.
Now we start to go to Africa and find the villages. It might be a next level. So you definitely, I like that.
Yeah.
I, definitely again appreciate this. But before you go, anything you want to tell us that you're working on? Anything upcoming that your fans want to hear about?
Oh man, I mean, this is so off the cuffs, real quick. What I'm working on, what I'm about to be working on, being that I found this information right now, I'm about to work on a whole documentary on this. So thank you. So
exclusive. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, love it. I love that inspired you this way.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And anyone that wants to follow you, you're on Instagram.
Yeah, Mobb Deep Havoc. You can follow me. That's the same as Facebook as well. And I want to say rest in peace, Prodigy.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I want to give a shout out to him in specific, because his grandfather was a jazz legend, and I just found out that Maz was too. So, man,
Yeah,
This is
you know
too
what?
Pretty
crazy.
dope.
Definitely can imagine those two, vibing together, or even if they weren't in the same era, just knowing of each other.
Right.
I'm pretty sure of that. So, I mean,
Probably
I
were
guess
familiar with one another.
I think what I'm waiting for is to hear how you gonna remix some of your grandfather's work.
I was just about to ask where
I'm
you're going
already-
to look into that music and try to create.
I'm already ahead of you. I already made a beat.
We already got beat.
I already made a beat off of his
so
music
dope.
already. Anyway,
man.
but you know how in the video games they make the dream teams of the NBA players from
Mhm.
different eras.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I'm about to put Prodigy's grandfather and my grandfather together and create a
Yes.
dream team
Well,
and a documentary.
that's
will
gonna be so
ensue
fire.
after
I'm
that.
so excited.
That would be dope, and especially if you can use their music as the background music,
That's
the
it.
ambiance.
That's all I'm using.
That'd be really amazing.
That is really cool. I'm so excited. Definitely rest in peace to P. I mean, I think that y'all grandfathers, they're looking down right now, and they're
They're
really,
proud.
they've got to be proud.
I mean, think
and
about it like this.
inspiration.
If you're a believer in this kind of stuff, it's like nothing happens by chance, right? His grandfather's a jazz musician. My biological grandfather was a jazz musician. And somehow, some way, me and Prodigy met up together.
Right?
Come on now. That's the hand of God right
Yeah.
there.
That's Kismet. That's the word of the day,
Right,
ladies
there
and
you
gentlemen. Look
go.
it up.
Love it. Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much for joining us. This is not our last time, and let me know when you're down in Maryland. We got to get some photos of that memorial and definitely keep that legacy going.
Absolutely, for sure. Thank you.
No doubt. Thank you, Thank you, Keisha. Thank you to our listeners. We are so happy that you joined us today. We look forward to having you join us again as we discover some more amazing gems. In the meantime, you can follow us on Instagram at Genes and Gems.